Hey everyone, Dorothy Wrightsman here. Today what I'm going to be doing on my model Janae is a full install of eye tips using 5 different blends. So for this classic installation that I'm going to be doing, I'm sectioning off the hair to make it easier to diagram and map out. I've sectioned off the front too because I'm not going to get to there until at least row 3. Now that I'm here in the back, I'm going to be starting at the nape, working my way up. My first section is going to be horizontal. Now that I've sectioned her hair up, she is blonde and her hair is nice and healthy. So you are going to have some flyaways from time to time. You want to be careful with these because as you're doing an installation, they could become into the cylinders and create crosshairs and can be very irritating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flyaway strip right through here. I've clipped the hair up nice and neat, so I'm just going to take my flyaway strip. You put it at the bottom of your section, push it up, and it makes it nice and clean and takes those flyaways away. With my model Janae, she just got her color done and it's very beautiful. So what I want to do is I want to emphasize that. So I'm going to be doing something between an ombre and a balayage, something like a sombre. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put light down here on my first couple of rows, then I'm going to intertwine some darker pieces, and then I am going to end with that light again to give her that soft dimension, but really brighten her up down towards the bottom. Now that I've started my install, I do want to give you a little tip that I did. With the DreamCatchers hair, it's 100% human hair and the quality is very, very strong and high. So I actually prepped the hair by purple shampooing it because like I said, she just got her hair done. So her toner is nice and fresh. The hair has been sitting in the bag for a little while, so I wanted to fluff it up. With the DreamCatcher hair, once you shampoo it, it really gives it that body and that volume that you're really looking for. So I prepped the hair by purple shampooing it, giving it a clean blow dry so that it mimics more what she has in her hair right now. I've now completed my first row, so just a couple of tips that I want to point out. You can already see that her hair is melting in with those extensions. Something to look at more during your consultation, but it's something to realize through your application. The more cylinders and hairs that you can fit in the bottom, the more hair you're going to need for the head. So when doing your consultation, take a look down at this nape section and try to gauge how many cylinders you're going to be able to fit inside of this one row. Because if you can fit a lot of cylinders here, you're going to need more, double, almost triple through the top up through here, rather than less. And that could make or break your application on how dense and how full your hair looks. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is you want to double check and make sure when your client pulls their hair up that it's not going to be seen. So what you can do is gauge, leaving 1 to 2 fingers around the hairline, and then I'm going to grab her hair here and I'm going to pull it straight up as if she's going to pull it into a pony. And you'll notice you cannot see any of those cylinders, they're completely hidden, which means you left enough space underneath to cover that as you're going forward. So now I'm going to continue up the head. You'll notice with my second row, it is slightly different than my first row. My first row, I took horizontal sections. That's going to help create that maximum density. With section number 2, I've worked from behind the ear to behind the ear, and I'm now in a U shape. This is going to help emphasize the natural structure of the head. So as I'm installing, some people are afraid to crimp it too tight. This could be a factor depending on the type of quality of hair that you're working with. So with DreamCatchers, the tip of the extension is rubberized, or a fancy word, polyurethane. So what that means and why that is important is because when I stick the tip inside of the cylinder here, and I break it down and I pinch it right here, that I-tip is then going to fill the entire cylinder and cushion the client's hair. Not all individual extensions are like this. A lot of times they have more of a hard coating or a plastic coating so that when you crimp it tight, it's gonna break down. And it's also harsher on the client's natural hair. So finding that good quality tip is really going to be essential within your application and really the longevity of both your client's hair and how long you can actually wear these extensions. So now that I'm approaching my third row, depending on the situation or how many bundles you need to fit into your client's head, you can alter your sections just a little bit. So with my model Janae here, I've done more of a deep U where I'm like more scooping underneath. That's gonna allow me to fit more hair inside of my client's head. If this was just a classic install or I was just doing about 4 bundles, then I would just go with more of a softer U that's not as deep and dramatic. Adding that deepness allows you to add more hair in. She's naturally got that dense hair, so we're probably going to be going upwards of 6 bundles. So I'm about 3/4 of the way through my third row. I did want to point out, in the back, you're doing that U shape to help emphasize that natural flow of the hair. You also can put more cylinders, more hairs in the head. As I go and transition to the side here, you will notice that it is now horizontal. The reason for this is the sides are always weaker. The main reason is because it's lacking so much of a hairline that's in the back. Always, also around the hairline, it's always going to be more of a fragile type of hair just because of that transition on the head. So when I'm working towards the front, I'm working with a horizontal, always on the sides here. So horizontal on the side, and then I transition in the back. I've now completed row 3. A couple of tips that I want to point out is when I'm working through my row here, I am putting everything side by side, no natural hair in between. This is going to build that maximum density as I'm working up through the head. Once I get to the top, you'll see that I start to space them out to allow that natural to come through. But I just wanted to show you here, everything is laying right next to each other. It's slightly away from the scalp. You have enough room to give. She could throw her hair up if she wanted to. It's not going to harm her. Horizontal on the side. Again, that deep U in the back, allowing me to add more space for my next row, and then continuing to the other side. The last thing I do want to point out is, like I said, I'm doing something called a sombre, which is a soft ombre in between ombre and balayage. So you will see that I've started to add a little bit of that dimension into her hair through here. I started off with solid blonde, and as I work up, I'm slowly introducing those darker to mid colors. So I've now completed row number 4. It looks identical to row number 3 because we're putting so many bundles in her hair because she naturally has that thick, dense hair. So you'll see on the sides, it's still that horizontal and it's still U-shaped in the back. This is going to be the last row that I do side by side with no natural hair in between. As I go to the next row in the back, I'll start to space out my cylinders to allow that natural to come through. On the sides, I will always stay horizontal because I always need that maximum density. So I've now completed Janae's full install. I wanted to point out on my last row here, my row number 5, She does have a heavy side part on this side over here. So I have raised the section on this side a little bit higher than it is on the other side to help compensate for that weight difference from her heavy part to her not heavy part. So on this side here, I'm still horizontal, side by side with no natural hair in between. But as I go back through here, you'll notice I have now spaced it out. My row number 4, it's 1 cylinder space apart. My row number 5, it's almost 2, leaving that space there to allow that natural hair to come through. Once I finish my application, what I like to do is I like to go back row by row and just double check my sectioning and my cylinders. As you're going through, sometimes you can get tiresome, so you just want to go back through, ensure that everything is nice and tight so that they don't have any fallout as they come back. Now that I'm finished with the install, I'm going to go ahead and do the haircut. When haircutting with extensions, typically you want to use a feather razor because it helps give you those rough edges as you're going through it because it's nice and perfect. So it's going to help mirror that client's natural texture. So you will notice that my client here, my model, has more of a horizontal line. So I am just going to carve out on this top layer just to help it diffuse within the extensions. I'm going to do that last because I'm going to create that layering effect first within the extensions, see how it falls, and then only cut the client's hair as much as you absolutely need to. Taking where her natural stops, that's where I'm going to start. Softly feathering, creating a face framing effect. It helps that transition from the natural to wherever you're ending your extensions. Just creating that movement within her extensions. So now I'm just going to take her top layer of her hair, just above row number 5. So what I'm doing now is I am noticing I can still see her structured line. So I'm going to go to her in between on where that line is appearing and help carve out right in between. Now you don't want to go on top with your feather razor because all that's going to do is create more layering and shorten the client's hair, and that's not your intention. Your intention is to help break up this weight line from them either having dense hair or a structured haircut. So when working with the client's natural, you're going to work from that underneath to only remove density, not length. And you can see how it just starts to diffuse that line and it starts to disappear within the extensions. So what I'm doing now is I am noticing I can still see her structured line. So I'm going to go to her in between on where that line is appearing and help carve out right in between. You have that nice perfect application. It's easy to section and get out of the way. So I'm going to finish up her haircut and then I'm going to get to styling.
Hi, I'm Janae and I came to the DreamCatchers studio today and I got some extensions in. I got 6 bundles of eye-tips and I used to do the clip-ins, but I switched today and it is way more comfortable, feels more natural. I don't even notice that they're in there and it lasts longer, so definitely check it out.